They've actually done significant research in this area.
Sure.
There's a plastic surgeon, Dr. Steve Diane from Chicago. And the number one concern, believe it or not, that patients have when they're looking into any kind of treatment is cost. That's their number one concern.
Interesting.
And I've always said, as a business, as an option for patients, you kind of make a decision where your price point is.
Okay.
Are you a Walmart office? Are you a Target? Are you a Neiman Marcus? You choose. Your price is kind of fixed based on the experience you're creating for the patient.
Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Robb Green. Dr. McCoy, pleasure to have you here.
Awesome.
I'm
Glad to be here.
Good. I'm excited to talk about your business. I've known you for a few years, but I don't really know a whole lot about your business. And so you're the owner of Contour Medical.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your business.
The business is 15 years old. It focuses and has focused since the very beginning on non-surgical approaches to improve the face and the body. And at the same time, there's also been this underlying contribution to wellness and functional medicine, which is one of the differentiators, meaning from day one, even when I was doing just a Botox injection or something for improving the way someone looked, I was always wanting to talk about the different things that they could do internally to make them also feel better. So it's that combination of having people look good and feel good.
How do you balance that? I mean, I think everybody that probably comes into your clinic comes in a different state of mind.
Correct.
So some people may have some preconceived notions about what they want to do, whether it's surgery, whether it's non-surgical solutions. How do you kind of balance that with each individual client?
That's part of the art of it. To be really honest, it's really looking at what little things you can improve more on the wellness and functional side, and what are the things that you can do from my perspective that are the least invasive, the least risky. Fundamental premise for any physician, regardless of your license, whether you're a doctor of medicine, a naturopathic doctor, whether you're a chiropractor, doesn't matter, is to first do no harm. So really educating patients about options that are going to be the least invasive possible. And most patients really resonate with that. And I think also from the very beginning, I was always really focusing on more natural solutions to things. And it was kind of funny because when I first started practicing 20 years ago, when I would talk about that at first, I was kind of nervous because it was not as commonplace as it is today. But as the years have gone on, there's just a wider acceptance and desire for that as part of people's self-care. Meaning when patients come to me and we start talking about more natural solutions, they're really excited about that. And I'm not against conventional medicine. I'm not against medications or surgery. But for me, it's about providing a complement or an alternative when it's appropriate.
What would be a good example of a natural solution?
A great natural solution example would be, there's a new device I'm using called the M-Face, which uses focused electrical stimulation and radio frequency, which sounds like gobbledygook, but it's just basically increasing the resting tone of the muscles in the face. As you age, your muscles lose tone. So this device, in 20 minutes with no downtime, no pain, no needles, improves the resting muscle tone of the face, which gives you some lift. So that's an alternative to like a mini facelift for some people, for the right person. So having those options available and discussing that with a patient is pretty powerful.
No, I think that makes sense. I think a lot of people are scared of permanent solutions. Like surgery feels permanent to me. So I think a lot of people feel very scared about going in, or maybe they're apprehensive even having the discussion because they don't know what's going to happen. They don't want to make a mistake, right? I feel like a lot of people are like, I don't want to do something that's going to disfigure my face or make me look funny in some capacity, right? I think that's a big concern.
That's a huge part of it. They've actually done significant research in this area.
Sure.
There's a plastic surgeon, Dr. Steve Diane from Chicago. And the number one concern, believe it or not, that patients have when they're looking into any kind of treatment is cost. That's their number one concern.
Interesting.
And I've always said, as a business, as an option for patients, you kind of make a decision where your price point is.
Okay.
Are you a Walmart office? Are you a Target? Are you a Neiman Marcus? You choose. Your price is kind of fixed based on the experience you're creating for the patient.
That's a great example to segue into your business then. So how do you position your business?
I would say that we're kind of a Nordstrom.
Okay.
That's where I've always kind of, I personally have always liked Nordstrom.
Okay.
I think, they've always had like a broad kind of availability of material, meaning super, super high end and kind of middle of the road. And I think as a general rule, Nordstrom creates a great experience. It's not Walmart.
Right.
Right.
They are famous for returns. That you can return anything you want there. So can I get a return on my face injections if I don't like them?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily return, but at the end of the day, I want you to be super happy. So, and that's interesting because when I say happy, when we did some vision exploration for the practice as far as purpose and thinking about, what is it that we're doing every day? For a long time, I kind of thought, well, I make people happy. But really, when you dig deeper, you learn that over time, sometimes in big ways, sometimes in small ways, you're really changing patients' lives. You're changing a person's life from the inside out. I can't tell you how often I have a patient that I might adjust something with their medication. I might adjust something with the way that they look, something that was bothering them for a long time. And it might seem small to most, but it can really make a difference in the way someone feels, their level of confidence. And that translates into a level of happiness, but it's more than just that.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on that. One, I had acne as a kid in high school a lot.
Perfect example.
And so like treating, and I've done some treatments with you and trying to treat some of the skin that I've had some scarring from that. And I think that most people would say that I don't lack confidence. And I feel pretty confident most of the time. But I remember back in high school having acne and having bad skin, that it challenged my confidence level. And I think that the small things that people get kind of stuck on, they call it the spotlight effect, where a lot of times you think, oh, I've got this, like example, I have one pimple right here on the end of my nose and everybody sees it and everyone's looking at that. The reality is most people probably aren't even paying attention to you, let alone looking at the one pimple on your face. But a lot of the times we feel like, oh, this one thing is everybody notices, everybody's judging me, everybody feels that way about it. So I do think that looking good translates into feeling good, which also supports your confidence level, which is a huge difference in just your normal everyday life, but business, personal, dating, everything. And I think that's a huge opportunity for people is to say, what is there that I could, maybe look better with or feel better about that then contributes to that success and that confidence.
Oh, there's no question for that. And I think the thing that happens is when you start paying attention to it and I start listening to my patient's story, it happens all the time. And acne's a great example because I had acne as well when I was a teenager. And it was treated really poorly, meaning at that time, going back over 30 years, dermatologists didn't have the same tools in the toolbox that they have today. And then to be able to come full circle and be able to help patients either with active acne or with the scars from acne, it has a lot of meaning for me personally. And I kind of like to do things that I have fun with and I enjoy day to day. I think you've seen that in the office. It's like a very unique area of medicine. It's kind of a fun medicine. But at the same time, I get to do some really technical things on the research side, which has always been an interest to me. So even the concept of looking good and feeling good, they've actually done a lot of research in that area. I don't know if I ever shared with you, there's a study in Botox where patients had major depression that was non-responsive to medication, meaning none of the antidepressant medications worked. They were still had categorized as majorly depressed. They gave half the patients Botox just in the frown area, and it improved their depression.
Really?
And all that happened is they're looking in the mirror and they're not seeing that frown. They're not looking as mad. They're not looking as sad, and they felt better. How cool is that?
That one little thing, and it's just like that feedback loop. Right. If you look at the mirror all the time and you've got a scowl on your face,
or people are asking you, "Are you angry?
Yeah,
or are you upset about something?"
That's fascinating.
Isn't that cool?
That is cool.
It shows the power over kind of the mind and the body,
Right.
which that's always been of interest to me.
Me too.
And when I was in school, so we're going back, I graduated 2000. So when I was in school, I was on, it was the Breast Cancer Initiative group. It was a medical group in Toronto. And I was looking at all the research in meditation, yogic breathing, transcendental meditation, all these different things that were kind of coming to the mainstream at the time in research. But they would laugh me off the stage saying that it was voodoo. And it's so funny because you look now and meditation, breathing, yoga, rebounding on a trampoline, think about lymphatic drainage, all those things are kind of more mainstream now.
Right.
But they're all rooted in good science. And that's the thing that's kind of cool is I'm a bit of a science nerd. And a lot of the things that we do day to day in the office are rooted in really good research for the most part.
I appreciate as a patient, I appreciate the holistic approach. I appreciate the fact that you always try to do less. Like, what's the minimum effective dose?
Yes.
Of what I can, to get the desired result, what's the least amount of whatever the application is that I need to provide to get to that result. And
it should be like that with everything that we're doing. It really should.
I would agree with you, but we have a society sometimes where it's like a little bit is good and more must be great.
Yes.
And so sometimes we get a little overboard, including myself on that, where it's like, oh, if I work out this hard, maybe it'll be better if I work out even a little harder.
Oh,
so
for sure.
I love that approach. So let's talk about the business a little bit.
Sure.
So you've been around, you've had the business for 15 years.
Yes, in Gilbert, Arizona.
Okay. And the primary source of new customers is word of mouth. Is that correct?
I would say word of mouth, and then obviously just maybe like organic web search.
Okay.
Yeah.
But those are probably people that come through friends of friends. I would assume that you might not even be able to capture whether it was word of mouth. Like,
correct.
I was referred to you from our friend Ramon, and I just said, hey, Ramon referred me in, right?
Right.
But I'm sure there's a lot of people. I've mentioned you guys to many friends that probably didn't even say, like, oh, Robb sent me in, right? You don't know because you don't always capture that piece of it.
And that's important. I want to be able to capture that. And haven't really, other than taking a note and putting it in your profile, which sometimes ends up getting buried and lost.
Yeah.
I would like to personally have a very specific kind of reward program for someone that refers, so that even if it's just something where you refer someone, we even just send you like a little note. Thank you for the referral.
Yeah, acknowledgement.
Just an acknowledgement.
Right.
But not just that. I want to give back to the people that refer, because that's the biggest compliment that you can make for me.
Right.
Is to refer someone that you know.
Well, and digging in on that, because my brain's just wired to think this way. If you can understand, I consider myself a super referrer. When I like something like 8 Sleep, the 8 Sleep, goes over the mattress and keeps you cool at night. I mean, I've probably referred 50 friends to that thing. Yeah. I mean, I love it. I use it. I mean, I rave about it, right? And so when I find something I really love, I just tell everybody about it. And I'm really open and transparent about things like, I used terzepatide earlier this year. I tell people about that. And they're like, hey, well, how do I get terzepatide?
Right.
Well, how do I do that? Right.
Right.
And I'm like, call Dr. McCoy and see if he's able to help you out with that. So, I mean, I am a big referrer on that. I think it would help you guys identify like who your referrers are. And then it's almost like, could you match up and identify, great, maybe this avatar, this type of person is a super referrer. Well, if I get more super referrers as clients, that will exponentially grow my business without me doing anything.
Absolutely.
Because some people just don't refer anybody. And then other people are like, they naturally are just more extroverted and share what's happening, and they're transparent about it.
So do you have a list of super referrers?
I have characteristics. I'll tell you that. I know what the characteristics are. I think of my super. I mean, I think transparency is number one. People that are, especially with your line of business.
You're spot on, because I have a lot of patients they're amazing patients, but they're very open, saying, "Oh, like they don't tell anybody. They don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. I tell everybody.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" I'm like, "Hey, I did this. I tried this."
Right.
And I'm like, "This is what I'm an open book about stuff like that." So I think that's a big characteristic probably of the super referrers is the transparency. Because if they don't want to tell anybody, they're definitely not referring anybody, right? Because they're not telling anybody they even got any treatments done or anything done. But I think that would be one thing I would recommend thinking about. The other thing, and it might be hard to capture also, but have you thought about lifetime value at all in your client base?
So yes, I've thought of lifetime value. And there is a general consensus on what lifetime value is. And the problem that I've seen is that average will be very, very different from patient to patient. So depending on their commitment to the office, I'd say the average lifetime value that's assessed in this industry is typically around $5,000
revenue. Yep.
Yeah. But that can skew largely depending on what that patient looks like in the office. So average lifetime value is around $5,000. So when the phone doesn't get answered, I'm really upset.
Yeah. Well, the cost of losing a patient is huge.
Absolutely.
So that is different than our business, where we're typically selling, smaller, less expensive products online. So it's anywhere from, $15 to $75.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff we make, you're not buying it regularly. Some of it is subscription, but our lifetime value of a customer online for our business is a lot less. So it's a little bit more transactional, where you are very heavy relationship oriented.
Correct.
And the cost of that losing patients is significant.
It's huge.
Huge.
Like I've got patients I've been treating for 20 years.
Right.
And the overlap, because you were referred by Ramon, is you think, how long do you go to a hairstylist?
Yeah.
And how often are you going? You start adding up the lifetime value on the hair side, even it's pretty immense.
Yeah.
So when it comes to a medical provider and a long-term relationship, because it is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
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 I'm saying that to patients all the time, but purely on the business transactional side of it, that's a reality for sure.
That feels like something you could capture relatively easy in terms of what is the lifetime value. Because what I would recommend you do and to think about is to think about how they came in. So we did this with a subscription we had. When we first launched the MCT oil powder back in 2019, we were selling on Amazon and our own site, but mainly Amazon was our primary source of customers. And what we wanted to understand is the lifetime value different for each cohort of customer depending on how they came into our product? Example would be, the first time they bought it was full price, or the first time they bought was a discount, or the first time they bought was a subscription? And then we looked at the analysis to say, is it worth it? Because the argument always is, if we discount, we get more people into the funnel and they come in and they try it out, then we'll get more subscription and they'll stay longer. That's the traditional marketing argument. But we wanted to understand, does that really work for this product? If we give them a discount on the first one, are they going to just buy one time? Or will they come in and will they have a consistent lifetime value that's equal to somebody that we didn't discount for? Mm-hmm. And so I think there'd be, especially with the numbers that you guys have from a lifetime value perspective, tremendous value in understanding if you could tie back how they came in the first time, like how they got introduced to your practice, and then what that person's lifetime value is. You could, my guess is, this is a complete speculative guess, but my guess is word of mouth has a higher lifetime value than a cold customer that found you doing a Google search.
Most likely true. I would guess.
It seems like that's because you're coming in with credibility, trust, because their friend recommended you to them. So they're starting off ahead versus a cold customer like a Google search is more difficult because you've got to build trust and credibility a little bit more. You're starting off at zero.
Right.
But I think understanding that, and I think it's relatively easy depending on what platform you're on to understand their lifetime value over time. And you could even do like a lifetime value and then divide it out and figure per year, and then how many years they stay with you, because that would help a lot of what we were talking a little bit before starting the podcast about your marketing, right? I know you're working on improving the site, getting better SEO, and you were talking to somebody recently about that, improving all that. But that would give you better marketing understanding of budget and how to allocate money.
Yeah.
I say all the time, I have an unlimited budget for profitable activities.
Right.
And so understanding those metrics would allow you to say, if we said, hey, I do $5,000 per customer lifetime value and I make 20% margin, that's $1,000 in profit. In theory, I could afford to spend, up to $1,000 and still acquire a customer and break even at least. Anything below that, I make money. That's a really big budget to use from a marketing perspective. But without that number, it's hard to really assess my marketing performance.
Right.
And then narrowing in on that focus of like super referrers, word of mouth, incentivizing word of mouth.
Yes.
And
incentivizing your super referrers.
Yes, incentivizing super referrers. 100%. That's what you want. I mean, a friend of mine, Shauna, has a gym, and I've helped her a lot with her pricing and thinking through this. Like, how does she think about, simplifying her pricing? How does she think about getting more referrals, right? How does she make it really, really easy and low friction to allow people to give referrals? That's the number one thing. I think I shouldn't say most, I'll speak for myself. I'm not referring people to a product or a service to get something in return. I'm referring them because I think it's good for the customer, for my friend typically.
Yes.
And I also think it's good for the company.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like connecting. I think of myself more as a connector. This person has a need. This person has a service or a product that works for them. I'm just going to connect them.
Yeah.
But I think you hit on that earlier about the acknowledgement part is really key.
Yeah. And I'm very similar to you. I'm wired the same way. I refer to the things I believe in, the people I believe in, the products I believe in.
Yep.
And I never do it expecting to get something in return.
Yeah.
But there's times where I learn how much it's helped the person that I referred, and I kind of feel like, oh, it would have been nice to get something, or I've never had to ask for something, So like a perfect example is the 3D photography that we use in the office. And if Canfield Scientific ends up watching this podcast, it would be fine because I'm very transparent.
You should send it to them.
But I have referred hundreds of people over the years.
Wow.
Hundreds, literally, that have looked at purchasing their 3D camera. And I've never asked for anything. And they've never really historically given me anything. This year, I wanted to do an upgrade on my software and purchase an extended warranty. And they actually sent me an email saying that they were going to comp it. And it felt so good. It felt so good. It's not like it's not like I was going to stop referring if they didn't give me something.
I understand.
But it did feel really good. And it actually was one of the things that made me think, having something in place so that the people that are referring, that there's something that's not corny and it's not feeling sleazy or anything like that, but it's a way to give back and really truly say thank you.
I think the authentic side of that is correct. I think it's closing the loop. And it's not only that, it's kind of a black hole. What I mean, this is, you and I are similar in this way. Like, I don't like the black hole of giving a referral to somebody and then not knowing whatever happened.
Yes.
Like, I want to know even like, I'll do a referral, and I'll use your service as an example. And I'll draw a blank on her name, but she's another service provider, does like laser hair removal locally. Okay. And she had gone in to see you, but I see her every 9 months. And I said, I love Dr. McCoy. I went in and saw him and he's great. And I was like, awesome. I told you, I didn't know you went. Yeah. Right. So there was no like, that loop stays open, and that like acknowledgement also closes the loop. Right. I think there's some real like psychological value in that, because it kind of like teaches people like, they listened. Two things. One, the person I referred actually took the action, which is like good. I'll give them more advice. Right. And then it worked out for them, which is even better, which I think is closing that loop is really great. There's a woman that I'd worked with before consulting, and I'm not kidding. She had 0 customers. I was like her first customer. And now she has this large business, and her most of her customer base came from my friends and my contacts to seed that. And then it just blew up into a huge business. And that's great. I love that. I'm happy to see her success. It's just interesting. And multiple friends were like, didn't she have no clients before? And I was like, she didn't. I think I was the first one. And so you want to see that. You're like, well, some acknowledgement of that I think would be nice, right? Again, not doing it to get something in return, but I've seen this happen over and over and over again, where you're like, wow, people sometimes forget where it comes from, I think. Right. And how they grow their businesses. So I think coming up with something around that's low friction to make it easier for people to refer, number one. And then number two, some type of simple feedback loop. Like, some people like gold stars and attaboys, but I'm just saying something like would be a feedback loop, just putting it into a machine or a process, so it doesn't rely on Dr. McCoy or an individual at the office having to think about doing it. Right. Just automating it in some capacity would be a great way for you to, I bet, would increase your lifetime value. Yeah, and I want that. So it's not the lifetime value. I want the referrals. Well, I do want that too. Yeah, you want both. Let's be real. Let's be honest. You want both. But that's something that I will implement. Okay. It's just figuring out the details on it. I love that. So that gives me kind of an idea, or us an idea, of how the business works. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.